It's not much. We good? All right. So everybody get you a pen, get you a paper. We're going to get started. So we are diving into week 2 of this series we started last week called Returned. We are walking through the story of the prodigal son, and we're also kind of going off of this retail theme of this idea of returning something and how the prodigal son returned to the father. So to kind of catch us up to where we were last week, so we see this son who has asked his father if he could get his inheritance early. He didn't want to be under his father's authority. He didn't want to be under his father's roof. He just wanted his father's resources. Then he went out into the world to live how he wanted to live. So that happened. A famine hit the land. The son lost all of his inheritance. And he quickly found the world was not as open and inviting, and he was not going to be as successful as he once thought. He found himself broke, working in a pig pen, and he said, you know what, my father's slaves have it better than I have it right now, so if I return home, maybe my father will let me be a servant in his house because they have it better than I have it now. And so we ended last week on the idea of the wrong size, on how, you know, if you get a wrong size piece of clothing, you have to return it. Or if you try to wear it and it's all baggy and it doesn't fit, it just isn't right. And how the son thought the world would fit him, but it was just the wrong size. And so many times we try to put on things of the world and wear it like it's our own, but it just doesn't fit right because it's not how God tailored it for our lives. Well, this week we're going to talk about the idea of a warranty. Warranties can be a great thing when it comes to buying a product, but warranties can also be a hassle too because there's always that fine print that comes into it that if you don't read it very carefully, it can be very difficult to return an item. I don't know if you receive them as much as I do, but like every single day I receive like 15 or 20 like spam phone calls about a car extended warranty. First, I've never owned what would even resemble a new car. So no vehicle I've ever owned would ever even consider having a warranty. So I know when they call, it can't be from me. My car is a 2007. I bought it off of eBay. That thing does not even, a warranty, there would be nothing that would ever cover my vehicle. It just wouldn't happen. And yet every day from Centerville, Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee. I got one from Reno, Nevada yesterday. They're starting to get creative and making me answer the phone because I'm like, Nevada, like that's pretty interesting. So I answered it. We're here to call about your car extended warranty. The elevator yesterday somehow answered one of these spam calls, and me and Mike Thrower walk into the Mac yesterday, and the elevator is talking to one of these spam automated calls. They somehow find a way to get a hold of you. It's crazy. But this idea of a warranty, returning something, I've experienced where a return and a warranty has been very good. I had a product that I thought would work. Maybe it worked for a little while. It broke or didn't fit right. I returned it, and I was able to get my money back, or I was able to exchange it for something I needed. But I've also had great difficulty when it comes to a warranty or trying to return something, where the people who work there forget that there's a thing called customer service. I don't know if you've experienced that or not. Maybe not, but it can be very frustrating because you're like, literally your sole job is to work with the public, and you don't seem to know how to do that very well. And so tonight, when we're talking about this idea of return and this idea of a warranty, sometimes returns can go very smoothly and very easy. Sometimes it can be a little bit awkward in a return, and sometimes returns can just not work out well. And so as we look at the son trying to return to the father, we're going to see which of those categories falls into not only the son returning to his father and asking for forgiveness, but where we fall into when we mess up, when we run away, where does that fall into our category? A question to kind of get us started before we dive into the scripture is this. What is your favorite thing about returning home after a long day? Let's hear it. Let's hear some of your favorite things when you return home from a long day. A shower. What else? Your bed. Your dog. Your mom. Supper. What else? What? Watching Family Guy. Awesome. So yeah, you have routines or rituals or things when you return home after a long day, when your dog runs up to you, when you have a nice hot meal waiting for you, you just get to take a shower. I love taking showers. I could take like 10 showers a day. There's just nothing more refreshing than taking a shower. But this idea of returning home, it's relaxing. It's like the weight of the world is lifted off when you can just lay in your bed, when you can watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever you watch, and you can just let the stresses of the day go away. But there's also times, I'm sure that you've had, when you've returned home and it hasn't been as joyful, right? Maybe you've done something you shouldn't have done, and you know when you get home and you have to face your parents, it's about to be not very fun, right? And so you want to stay out a little bit longer because you're like, I know that when I get home, life is going to be pretty difficult for me. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and I'm sure you have too. And where we're at in the story of the prodigal son, when he is returning home like many of us may have, where he is just royally blew it. He is messed up, and he's not even expecting to be able to return home as a son anymore. He's just going to return home, ask for his father's forgiveness, and see if he'll let him be a slave. So we're going to be in Luke 15. We're just going to read 5 verses 20 through 24. It'll be on your screen so you can follow along. So he got up, that being the prodigal son, and went to his father. But while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him, was filled with compassion. He ran, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father told his slaves, Quick, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then bring the fattened calf and slaughter it, and let's celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and is now alive again. He was lost, but now is found. So they began to celebrate. We're going to see 3 quick things tonight on this idea of the warranty and the idea of the returned. The first thing we see is the compassion assigned. The compassion assigned. What is compassion? Well, compassion is the sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering or misfortune of others. I'm going to be honest with you. There are times when I am not a very compassionate person. Now, that might sound pretty harsh because I'm a pastor, I'm a youth pastor, so we're supposed to be people of compassion. But just to be honest, a lot of the situations that I see people go through, it's hard for me to show much compassion to them because I'm like, you got yourself in this situation. What did you expect would happen when you did these things? Like, obviously, the consequences of your actions would have led to this. So it's hard for me to show compassion. But I'm thankful that God is not as harsh to me as I am sometimes as harsh to other people in my life. And the father in this story, he could have been harsh, like sometimes I want to be harsh, to his son. Because his son took a lot of money, he wasted it, something that should have lasted him for the rest of his life. He wasted it in just a few short years, and now he is returning home really trying to get more because he now needs his father to provide for him again. And so he was expecting to probably receive a very harsh response from his father. But instead, it says while he was still a long way off, the father noticed that he was coming. He had compassion on him, and the father did something that was very against Jewish tradition. He tied up his robe and he ran, which would not have been something that was dignified and something that was honorable and something that Jewish men did. But he didn't care. He tied up his robe and he ran to his son because he wanted to show him compassion. He felt sorry for him. He loved his son and he missed him. So the first thing we see is the compassion that was assigned. But the second thing we see is the call that was awarded. The call that was awarded. Now, I don't really necessarily feel this as much as, to my parents as I do with God sometimes. But, there have been times where I've messed up and I'm embarrassed to even stand in front of my parents. Have you ever done that before? You've just done something and you're just embarrassed to even stand in front of them because you're like, I know I'm your son, I know I'm your daughter, but I've really tainted the family name. And, I've never been like, Mom and Dad, are you going to call me son? But I do that to God all the time. I mess up and I sin, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even worthy, God, to be called your son anymore. Because you've shown me forgiveness, you've shown me all of these different compassions, and God, I just keep messing up with you. And so many times I feel like I have fallen out of the category of son when it comes to God. And maybe you've thought that too. Maybe you've thought, well, I've just messed up too many times, or I've done too many bad things, and so God doesn't view me as his child anymore. What's a beautiful thing that we see in this story of the prodigal son? The son goes to the father after having just screwed up, after messing up so bad, and he's just expecting the father to call him a servant. He said, Father, all I want you to do is call me a servant. Just allow me into your house, but don't even call me your son anymore. Just let me be a servant to you. Call me by my name. But what does the father call him? The father still calls him his son. He puts the family ring back on him. That signifies that he's a member of the family. He puts shoes on his feet. He puts clothes on his back. And he throws a party because his son has returned. And a beautiful thing is that this story is a picture of what God does to us. A lot of times we do exactly like the prodigal son, and we put on the wrong clothes of the world. And we expect many times, like we do when we mess up or something breaks, and we feel like God has a warranty on his love toward us. And many times we feel like his warranty has run out. I've asked for forgiveness too many times. I've just messed this up too bad. There's no way that if I come to God this time, he will actually love me and forgive me. And so what do we do a lot of times? We don't even return to him. We run to the world. We just say, you know what, I've blown it too much. I'm going to stop coming to youth group. I'm going to stop coming to church because whatever I've done, God would never forgive me. The people at church would never forgive me. They know what I've done. They know that I've messed up. And so we just expect that compassion won't be showed, forgiveness will never be showed, and that God, when he sees us, will not call us his son or his daughter, but will call us whatever lie that you allow Satan to attribute to you. Whether it's a sinner, or whether it's damaged goods, or whether it's broken, or whether it's too far gone, or whether it's a misfit, or a dummy, or a loser, or ugly, or not worth it, or whatever false label you've let other people attribute to you. But God tonight, the beautiful thing that is awarded to you is that if you are a child of God, God calls you son, or God calls you daughter. God does not look at you in your sin and in your mistakes when you return to him and attribute anything or any name other than his child. So don't be afraid tonight if you have messed up or if you screwed up or if you're running away to return to the Father, because he will call you his child. And that's when we see the last thing, the celebration available. You see, we see at the end of the story, I'm going to be honest with you, you don't expect the end of the story to happen like it happens, right? You don't expect that the father, when his son returns many years after squandering and wasting all of these resources and money, for him to say, hey, great job, son, you blew all your inheritance, let's throw a party. Like, that doesn't seem like what would happen at the end of that, right? You would expect that he would get a scolding, or he would get a lesson on economics and personal finance management, like this is how you should have budgeted it and done this better, and investments. The father doesn't do any of that. He doesn't ask for excuses. He doesn't ask for anything. All he says is, my son has returned. You were once dead, now you're alive, and we're going to celebrate because of it. And many times, again, we expect that when we return to God, that he's just going to pile on us all of this judgment, and he's going to pile on us all these rules that we have to follow, and he's just going to pile up all this guilt. And that's what Satan wants you to do, so that you will never actually truly return to God. But the truth is that it is a celebration when a person goes from death to life. So if you're not a child of God, and maybe tonight for the first time you do return to your Father, return to that relationship that you were designed for, it says that the angels in heaven celebrate that. But do you know also when another celebration happens? When a prodigal child who gave their life to Jesus, who gave their life to God and walked in a relationship, but then ran from Him, just like the prodigal son, whenever we return, there's another celebration that happens. When we expect punishment, instead we get relationship. When we expect judgment, we get love. Whenever we expect harshness, we receive compassion. You know, the Bible tells us that the yoke or the burden, the weight of God, it says that it's easy. His burden is light. And a lot of us, we are carrying the weight and guilt and shame of this world, of our mistakes, of our failures, of not being good enough, of not being smart enough, of not having enough likes, about whatever. And we're afraid to return to God because we're afraid that He will attribute to us the same thing that everybody else in this world has given us. But God tonight is ready to show compassion to you. He's ready to call you His child, and He's ready to celebrate with you the life that He has for you. This message of return, or this message of God's love, doesn't have an expiration date. There is no warranty on God's love of, you know, if you damage it too much, you're too far gone. Tonight is a night of return. Not only for you, but for your friends. You have the opportunity, maybe if you've really blown it and you've seen the compassion of God, to show compassion to others. I know that there's been people who have walked through this student ministry who are still of age to be here, who don't come because they may have felt like they have blown it too much. They mess up, they make mistakes, they make life decisions, and so I would never be welcome back there because of this life that I live. And so you could be that branch of compassion to them to show them that they're still welcome. What other place should they be at if they've made a mistake than right here where they can hear the gospel and hear about the love and the compassion of Jesus? You know, a lot of times we feel like that following God is so difficult when it's really not as hard as it's just returning to Him and walking with Him. So tonight, as we are getting ready to go to small groups, as we're getting ready to figure out how we're going to respond to this, my question is, are you living in the world, expecting it to fit right, expecting all these things, and you know, man, I shouldn't be talking like this, I shouldn't be watching movies that I watch, I shouldn't be spending time on the things that I'm spending time with, the jokes that I tell, the music I listen to, whatever it is. I know these aren't the things that are honoring God. So I can either remain in them, I can set up camp there, I can set up my home, and I can say, this is who I am. Or I can return to the life that God is calling me to live. I can be a leader in our student ministry. I can be a leader in my school. I can be a leader in my friend group. And I can make a change in my life. And when I start making a change in my life, then it might make a change in somebody else's life. And you return. And when you return, you might expect all these things, but I promise you, you'll receive the same reception that the son received when he went to his father. One of care, one of compassion, one of calling you his child, and one of celebration. So tonight, the response is very simple that you'll get to have in your small group. If you haven't started a relationship with Jesus, and all of you have been doing is literally eating the slop of the world trying to get by, there is so much better waiting for you if you'll come to God. It's not judgment, it's not rules, it's a relationship. It is a relationship with a man called Jesus. He loves you, He cares about you, He wants to show compassion on you. Maybe you do have a relationship with Jesus tonight. And maybe though you've had that relationship and you've done like the son and you've taken all of his resources and you've went out and you've tried to live under your own authority, not taking God's rules or not taking God's authority in your life. You want His blessing, but you don't want His authority. And that's not how it works. It's time to return to Him. He'll still call you child. He'll still call you loved. But you can't keep living in the world and expect to still be able to function under His house. It wasn't until the son returned to the father that the celebration happened, and we're ready to celebrate tonight. So as we get ready to go into a time of small group, think, how in my life have I received compassion from God? How can that draw me closer to Him? And then how can I start showing compassion to other people to help them see this love that the Father has for them? I'm going to pray for us. You're going to head to small group and unpack some of these things we've talked about tonight. God, we thank you so much that you do love us. You show compassion on us. You call us your child even though we mess up time and time again. And God, I pray that at the end of small groups tonight, we can have a celebration because people have went from death to life, just like the prodigal son did in this story, that they went from living in the world to living back in your house in a relationship with you. God, I pray that we will understand the compassion you have for us. We will accept the title as your child and not the title that the world has given us. And God, I pray that at the end of this we can just have a celebration unlike any other. We love you. We thank you. It's in